Whether or not you have started investing to build wealth, the fact is investing is necessary if you ever want financial security. Now, if I could travel back in time about 15 years, this is what I look like, and if I could tell 23-year-old me what to do with my first paycheck at my first full-time job, and little 23-year-old me actually listened, I would 100% be a multimillionaire by now. But since I can't do that, I want to share in this video 5 important investing related lessons that I wish I had known in my 20s. This is what I would tell my young 23-year-old self. And by the way, if you're not in your 20s, don't worry, it is not too late. Age is a social construct. But I personally didn't start proactively investing besides my 401k until my 30s, and I'm in a really great financial position today. So it doesn't matter what age you are, just prioritize improving your finances and starting to invest wherever you're at. For those new here, hello and welcome. My name is Lissa. I'm a personal finance expert and an accredited financial counselor, and I'm also the co-host of NetNet Podcast, where we empower you to make your own damn decisions about finances and about everything else in life. So make sure you check it out and let me know what you guys think. All right, let us jump into that list of lessons I wish I knew in my 20s. Number 1, saving money isn't enough. That is, saving and not investing it will rarely, if ever, lead to financial security and wealth. So when I say saving in this particular context, I mean putting it aside for use later in a place that doesn't get a meaningful return. For example, saving money under your mattress, in a piggy bank, or even in a bank account, even those high yield savings accounts that we all love. Now, if you know how to save money, don't get me wrong, that is a great skill. It's just that, unfortunately, putting money aside like that without investing it is typically not enough to truly build wealth. And that's because money loses value over time. As time goes by, every dollar you have in your wallet or in your bank account is worth less and less. This is the concept of inflation, which you're probably familiar with. For me, personally, I've always known what inflation was from a consumer standpoint, that the cost of things goes up and it's harder and harder to afford things. I've always known that, and I'm sure most people do as well. But for me, because I had no background in finances or business, or I never even took an economics class that I can remember, I didn't really understand that that concept of inflation equates to your money being devalued over time. And because of that concept, saving money without investing is a difficult approach to really trying to reach financial security and financial freedom. So take a look at this actual paycheck of mine from 2011. I was in my early 20s and I was getting paid about $900 every 2 weeks. If I remember correctly, I believe my rent was about that much here in Los Angeles, which meant that half of my income, so like one whole paycheck, was going completely to rent. But that's besides the point. The point I want to make is money was tight. So back then, it felt impossible to save anything. So if I wasn't thinking about saving, I for damn sure wasn't thinking about investing. But I want us to go back into time, and let's imagine that in 2011, I was able to save just a little bit. I was able to put $25 from each paycheck into a savings account. Because I got paid bi-weekly, that meant I got 26 paychecks in a year. 26 paychecks times $25, $650. So saving $650 in a year does not sound like a lot of money. But at the very least, that money, when saved, does provide a cushion, right? It is a cushion, it's an emergency fund, it's something that I can dip into so that I'm not just living paycheck to paycheck. I'm starting to build my savings. So don't get me wrong, saving is a good thing and it's something we should all think about. But I want to look at this $650 in this savings account from the perspective of inflation and our money losing value. So if I had that $650 in 2011 and I didn't touch it, and now in 2024, that same $650 is in that account. What would happen is that $650 in my account today in 2024 would only buy the equivalent of $464 of things back in 2011.
What?
So the other way to kind of contextualize and look at that is something that would have cost me $650 in 2011 would actually cost $909 today. So I couldn't get the same amount of things. Saving, because of inflation, becomes this race of trying to put more and more money aside over time to be able to afford things in the future, to be able to have financial security, but you're having to put more and more aside, which can feel unrealistic. Now, the irresponsible me in my 20s might have learned this concept and taken it the wrong way. I'd have been like,
What? My money loses value? All right, let me just go spend it and buy things today before prices go up.
but look, that's not the point here. The point isn't that you should use every dollar as soon as possible before it loses its value. The lesson is that while saving money isn't enough for financial security, investing is. In fact, investing is necessary. So we all know that investing money comes with risks. But the concept of investing is that your money can grow over time. And not only will your money grow so that it can maintain value, for example, if that $650 was invested in 2011 and it grew to $909 in 2024, that means it would have maintained its value. I could buy the same amount of things as that $650 from 13 years ago. But with investing, the goal is not only to maintain your value, but it's to grow your value so that you are actually building wealth over time. So for those of you who haven't started investing, whether it's from fear or feeling like you don't have enough, guess what? It is time to start, especially if you have all of your savings in order. Which on a related note leads me to investing lesson number 2. Something that I wish I knew in my 20s is investing does not have to be scary. So one of the biggest reasons people don't invest, aside from just assuming it's difficult or thinking they don't have enough to get started, is really and truly that it is scary to potentially lose your money. It feels like a gamble. It feels like,
Why would I put my money in there when I know it's safe with me over here?
so let's be real. It would suck to invest your money into something and to see that numerical value drop. Realistically, depending on what you invest in, you may see the value of your portfolio go up and down, especially in the near term. But what you want is for your money to grow over a long period of time. So rather than being afraid of losing money and just not investing altogether, what I suggest is that you set yourself up for success so that investing is not scary. There are ways to mitigate that fear. So here are a few ideas. Number 1, build an emergency fund. An emergency fund is money you set aside. So this is money that you want to keep in a safe place, like a savings account. And even though over time it's going to lose some value, the point is that if something happens, you don't need to pull from your investments when you aren't ready to. Instead, you have this emergency fund that you can pull money from. So if you're able to build that emergency fund first, and then you start investing, you don't have to pay attention to your investments on a day-to-day basis. You can allow them time to grow and not worry about them, even if something comes up in life where you have to dip into your savings. Number 2, another way to reduce that fear when it comes to investing is to learn more. If you go back to lesson 1 in this video, where I was talking about inflation and how your money loses value, the more you learn about money and how it works, the more you're going to realize it's not that scary and this is a normal thing that people do, and it is the means to work towards financial stability. The more financial education you have, the more you're going to become confident when you make financial decisions, including investment decisions. And number 3, another thing you can do to reduce that fear when it comes to investing is to just start small. There are such low barriers nowadays for investing. You don't have to start with thousands of dollars. You can start with a much smaller amount. So whether you do that on your own or through a robo-advisor or through a person, through a human financial advisor, there are ways to start with smaller amounts so that you can feel it out before you go all in. All right, that was already a lot, but we have 3 lessons to go on the list. Quick intermission. If you are enjoying this video already, please hit the like button because it really helps me reach more people and it's been helping my channel grow. So I really appreciate all of you guys coming to watch all of my videos. All right, let's move on. Number 3, a lesson about investing I wish I knew in my 20s is you can and you should invest outside of your retirement accounts. So earlier in the video, I mentioned how the only investments I made in my 20s were through my 401k account, which is an employer-sponsored retirement account. So there is nothing wrong with saving for retirement in a retirement account. In fact, you should do it, especially if your employer offers you a match, right? They match every dollar that you put into your 401k or other retirement account. But something that I didn't really understand in my 20s was that the main difference between a retirement account, such as a 401k, and a regular individual brokerage account was that the retirement accounts came with tax advantages, right? Like there are some accounts that are called pre-tax accounts, meaning if you put money into them, the money you put into them are not going to count towards your income taxes this year. So you get to pay less taxes this year. There are other ways that there are tax advantages with these types of accounts, but that's really one of the biggest reasons that people use these types of accounts. Now, what I didn't know was you can also invest and grow your money on your own in non-retirement accounts, but of course you don't get those tax advantages. The upside, however, to investing outside of retirement is your money is not locked up. So while I've been talking about, investing for the long run and keeping your money invested, even though you want to keep it in there for a long time, you have access to sell your investments whenever you want. Now, with retirement accounts, sometimes you are able to access that money as well. The only problem is if you do it before retirement age, which is typically 59 and a half, you can be hit with penalties. So not only are you taking your money out and getting taxed on that money, you can also potentially have to pay penalties. So the point is not that retirement accounts are better than non-retirement accounts or vice versa. The point is you want to make sure that your investing strategy, like where you put your money, where you invest through, is aligned with your goals, right? Do you want to have access to some of your investments before retirement age? Do you have other financial goals that are going to happen before age 59 and a half? Because you might want to think about splitting up where you invest your money. There are a lot of approaches to it, and for me, back in my 20s, I just didn't know any better. In fact, back in my 20s, I didn't really understand what a 401k was or what it was being invested in and what those investments actually meant. So if I could go back in time and tell myself all of these things, I would have a better strategy around what I'm investing in and through what kind of accounts. Moving on, lesson number 4, something about investing I wish I could tell myself back in my 20s. There is no perfect time to start. It's common to think you don't have enough money to start investing. It's common to be scared to invest, like we talked about earlier. It's common to be afraid, especially if you think we're in a recession and you might lose your money. But in reality, especially for long-term investing, there's no perfect time to start. So I mentioned earlier in the video that you should have an emergency fund before you start investing. And there's another rule of thumb, which is to pay off high interest debt before you start investing, simply because you don't want your high interest debt to compound if you don't pay it off. But outside of those things and getting some of your other basic financial foundations in place, there's not really a perfect time to start. You can't just keep waiting for it to be the perfect time in the market, because the idea is when you start investing, especially as a beginner, like we've mentioned earlier in the video, the plan is that you're investing long term. So the longer your money stays invested, whether you start during a market downturn or a market high, the hope is that regardless, over a lot of time, you're gonna increase the value of your original investment. I used to think like, I'll start investing, I'll get into all that stuff later when I have enough, when I have more. But the problem with that kind of thinking is, for some people, later. And having enough never actually happens because life happens, inflation happens, things get more expensive. Lifestyle creep happens. We just spend more because we have more. So rather than just push it further out, you kind of have to just jump in. All right, last but not least on this list, lesson number 5, something I wish I knew in my 20s related to investing, was that it is possible. It is possible to learn investing, to understand investing, that it's possible to build wealth, that it's possible to grow your money without having to work a ton of overtime. If I had the mindset of knowing that this was possible, this was something I should be doing, this is something I want to get started on now, like I said at the beginning of the video, I would be way wealthier than I am today. So I didn't learn or understand investing growing up. It was one of those things that I didn't know that I didn't know it. So my parents were both immigrants, and even though they had pretty good money skills and they knew basics of certain things like home buying and life insurance, they didn't really teach me those things in terms of an investment strategy, and I didn't know anything about the stock market or other financial markets. But I don't blame them. They knew what they knew, and they passed on as much knowledge to me as they could. It's just that when I got older, I realized that it was a systemic thing. It was systemic for certain types of people to not be exposed to the world of finance. I wouldn't have learned it unless I sought it out myself. And lucky for you, there are so many resources nowadays, including my channel, where you can learn about personal finance, about investing, about building wealth. So that's why this lesson is super important to me. It's not directly related to the logistics of investing, but I think if I knew it was possible to build wealth and I had the tools in front of my face to do it, I would have gotten started a lot sooner. I would have gone back in time, I would have grabbed myself, I would have been like, you can do this, you can learn this stuff, you are capable, don't avoid it, don't ignore it, just know that it's possible and get started. All right, I hope this was helpful, and let me know in the comments if you have any questions about investing or if you want to share anything about your own journey towards starting to invest. Until next time, peace out.